Your Olympic hero has arrived. It's true, it's true.
You know the phrase, living in the past, and how it's often used in a derogatory manner? Well, each day that goes by, I start to see that as a positive, in the most literal of senses. Because I fucking hate people these days. I fucking hate it. I hate the way things are, and just how fucking insane and retarded people are. And I go on, I did that video on cynicism, I've done videos on how things used to be edgy, and I've done videos talking about how everyone used to be more or less normal before they all start thinking that they're part of some cause or some crazy shit. Hell, I've done videos talking about being antisocial, and that kind of goes hand in hand with it. Because I love socializing with people who aren't insane or retarded. You know, my audience is full of some pretty retarded people, but in a fun way, in an endearing way. And also, at times, an annoying way. But what I wanted to talk about here was, as I say in the title here, we used to have a real society, right? That we used to actually have, you know, and I've talked about this at length before, it's been on my mind, so I'm just gonna ramble on, and if I repeat any old points or whatever, then so be it. But there's so many people at this day and age that will just eat up any shit that they're told, right? Anything that they hear on the TV, on the news, or on the internet, you know, as long as it's their team saying it, they're all for it, right? And both sides do this. Obviously, I have a side, right? I'm on the right. I'm a right-winger. I've always made that clear on the channel, right? But it happens on the right quite a bit, too. Something that just drives me nuts is that people will just accept all sorts of insane things as fact. Like, especially on the left, obviously. Like, the transgender thing. Again, I've talked about this so many times at length. But, how? Like, I think part of the problem is young people, right? Young people who are getting into politics now have no experience with it, have no recollection of previous things, and just assume that this is the way the world's always been. Never mind the fact that they can't fucking define what the hell they're talking about when they come to the trans issue, right? They say gender and sex is different, but then they can't define what sex means. They use the sexual terms to define the quote-unquote gendered things, right? They used to say, you know, man was the gender term, male was the sexual term. Now they use both interchangeably, which of course they are interchangeable because males are men, because gender and sex are not different, but they can't make up their fucking mind on that. But the whole trans issue, obviously, it's a mental illness, and was treated as such for a very, very, very long time. Or on the flip side, it was treated as degeneracy with cross-dressing, but at least at that point, they were doing it to be racy, to be, you know, sort of controversial, to be edgy, to be fucking degenerate. I don't like that either, but I can respect it more when they were at least open that they were degenerate. Now they act like it's not a fetish thing, which it absolutely is. There's so many narratives and all this rhetoric we've been fed for years and years and years. Like, there's so much shit we're taught in school that's just nonsensical and completely skewed, right? Like, everything's treated so black and white and one-sided in history, but that's literally never been the case. And, in fact, a lot of the times, people that we are told to, like, idolize and view as heroes are actually fucking horrible people, you know? Like Martin Luther King. That guy was literally just trying to spread Marxism. That was clearly his goal. He watched as his friend raped a chick and laughed about it. And, you know, he condoned violence and said it was a good thing, except for when it was inconvenient for him to say it. He advocated for nonviolence when it suited him, when it looked good. And then you find a lot of people in that movement, right? Rosa Parks was fucking planted by the NAACP. Like, it's not like she was just sitting on the bus one day and decided, hey, I'm gonna stand up and say, no, I'm not going. No, she was planted. She was told to do that. Or you get Abraham Lincoln, who was super tyrannical, who imprisoned and deported people who disagreed with him for sedition. He suspended the writ of habeas corpus. He literally took away people's right to due process, their right to a trial. And people will act like this guy's a fucking hero too. Not to mention the horrible shit that the North did to the South after the war. I don't care what your thoughts on the fucking war are. Doesn't matter. The point is, Lincoln was a fucking tyrant. And then we're fed this narrative about how the Westerners, the white man, came over and wiped out all the natives and stuff. No, it was war, and it was far from one-sided. It was only one-sided in the sense that they were they were outmatched with weapons and technology. But they actually started it. Like, they had peace, there was a ton of peace, and then they started it because they didn't understand how bargaining worked. Now, there's all sorts of things, again, no side was innocent in that, but, like, there's all these narratives we've been fed for, like, ever that are just fucking ridiculous and just inaccurate. So, like, the problems with a lot of shit now, just, it goes down to a root cause, right? Like, the root cause is that, you know, the education system has been nothing but propaganda for God knows how long, forever, right? It's just now it's much more overt. And, like I said, we don't really have a society anymore because people don't give a shit about people, right? It's funny, because, like, a lot of people don't give a shit about their neighbors, they don't give a shit about their communities, a lot of people don't even give a shit about their own families. A lot of people care either more about immigrants or people in foreign countries that they've never fucking met just because they want to seem cool and not racist. Or, alternatively, they'll care about parasocial relationships with celebrities or online personalities because that's cool now, right? Social media has been destructive as hell to the social order, and it's destroyed people's ability to socialize with other people in the real world. There used to be a sense of shared values, and in the case of the US, it was based on Christian values. That's just how it was, right? Like, I have my own issues with things about Christianity. I do consider myself a Christian, but I'm not at all anywhere near a traditional Christian. I don't even know how much of it I find to be literal or metaphorical. That's never been as relevant to me as the value system, because obviously there are contradictions in the books. You know, like the Bible, there's contradictions and shit in that. But to me, the morals and the sort of sense of community that it brought is something that we just don't have anymore. You know, I always say this, but the world we grew up in no longer exists. There is no sense of unity, there is no sense of community, and everybody hates each other playing team sports with politics. And I don't like centrists either. I think centrists are fucking pussies because they won't pick a fucking side. I'm certainly not advocating that either. But I just hear normies all spout the same fucking takes, and it just drives me nuts. It drives me up the fucking wall to hear people just parrot shit they heard on, like, CNN or MSNBC or even Fox News. To just hear the same fucking tired rhetoric, to hear shit that's obviously and demonstrably untrue. All the shit we've been hearing about climate change for fucking decades, and, like, it always has to move the goalpost and change and shift. And notice, now, even fucking the Democrat Party doesn't even fucking care about climate change either, because, if they did, why would Kamala fucking flip-flop on fracking, right? Why would she now be totally okay with fracking if it was, like, a fucking existential crisis like they acted like it was for fucking years? People don't care about what's going on in their own fucking neighborhood. They rather care about what's going on over in the Middle East with fucking Israel and Palestine, which has nothing to do with us in the US. There's so many times you hear about scandals and shit that, like, I don't care about either, right? Where you hear about some celebrity with some sex scandal, right? And obviously, there are all sorts of shady shit in, like, Hollywood and with, like, the fucking technical elite and just kind of with the world elite trademark in general, right? Like, there is a lot of shady fucking shit. You know, there was obviously Epstein and shit like that, right? But, like, there's so many people that will just, like, immediately believe something when shit comes out about a celebrity, or that shit comes, like, I don't take any allegations seriously until it is absolutely proven to me. That's why you don't see me really comment on it a whole lot unless I'm defending it, like with the Vince McMahon thing where I was saying that I don't really believe it. Shit like that. Or, like, you know, shit with, like, Andrew Tate and the human trafficking thing. Like, until I see enough evidence, I can't take a stance that say I believe it, right? And I think that there's a lot of shit like that I see, that people will just accept these things. And, I just can't do that. Like, even if I don't like someone, I'm not just gonna blindly believe something about them just because somebody said it. Another thing that I just don't get that people will just fucking buy into, and I'm gonna do a whole video on this at some point later on, so I won't go too in-depth. I don't understand why people are so incapable of understanding why abortion is wrong, right? Like, for me, that's a big one. And I know that there's a lot of people who disagree for some fucking reason, right? Like, again, I've had arguments where people are like, well, the real question we should be asking is prenatal or postnatal, which to me is just fucking psychotic. Because it's not like it's, first off, it's not even simple extraction. It's going in, violently scrambling it, and then sucking it out. Even if it's viable. Like, like, viability isn't even a factor to a lot of these people. And again, I believe in no abortion. Like, I believe that it is always wrong. Life begins at fertilization. And that's not even from a religious standpoint, which is something I hate, because people think, oh, you're arguing from a religious standpoint. I'm not. It has nothing to do with that. And then they'll be like, oh, well, then what about, do you really care about human life? Like, it's funny when people assume I'm okay with, like, the death penalty, because I'm not. Right? Again, we'll go into this. This will be a whole other video about the value of human life, which I'm planning to do in the future, but first I'm going to do one about empathy later. So, I've never understood why people can't figure out just why it's wrong. Like, there's no accountability in our society, especially for women. Like, women just do not have accountability for anything. Like, the divorce courts, family courts, the culture just online, and, like, even, like, just, the court of public opinion, right? When people accept things like OnlyFans and shit like that, and then the bitches who go on there act like it's fucking empowering that they're doing it, like, oh yeah, I'm empowering. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a content creator. It's fucking cringe as shit. At least porn stars know that they're fucking porn stars and know that what they make is filth and that it's degenerate. Like, at least there's that. That's why I respect regular porn stars way more than a fucking OnlyFans thought. Everyone thinks that they're part of some fucking cause. Like I said, people will act like if somebody says, like, the word faggot or nigger, they're, like, the worst person in the world and they need to be taken out. When literally everyone said faggot, like, 10 years ago. Maybe even, like, 6 or 7 years ago. Everyone gets up in arms about the next thing and shifts the goalpost and wants to be, like, different and special. And, like, obviously there's exceptions. There's still normal people out there. And I think that there are more normal people than we're led to believe, because I do think that part of the plan of the machine trademark is to actually demoralize and blackpill us, right? Like, that is part of it, right? To destroy the will and conquer, right? But people have no sense of irony anymore either. There's people who take things just completely at face value and just will believe that people are being genuine when they're obviously not. Like, for instance, let's say, like, that fucking Elon-generated Kamala fucking AI picture of her in the communist outfit. Jesse Coffey did a whole post about it, talking about how it's obviously AI and, like, acting like Elon was being 100% genuine. He clearly fucking wasn't. It was clearly a joke. I'm gonna do a whole video on Jesse Coffey later as well, because Jesse Coffey's a funny little guy. He's not very bright. But he's not, like, a bad person. He's just stupid. Which is the case with a lot of people, which is unfortunate because, there's the banality of evil, right? Where people aren't evil on purpose. It's just people are stupid and will go on and, like, support evil causes thinking that they're doing the right thing. And that's always been the case, and, like, I'm certainly not immune to that, right? Obviously, my views have changed multiple times over the years. When I was much younger, I started out as a pretty generic conservative, and then in my teen years I went through a hardcore, like, socialist phase, and then now I'm where I'm at now, which is, really harder to define because it's, it's libertarian, but it's got some conservative values, and I borrow shit from, like, objectivism, from all sorts of different philosophies. Like, I like shit like Sigmund Freud shit, like, and that's another thing, people act like Freud was, like, crazy or wrong. He makes a lot more points about human nature than people would care to admit, and that's something that I think a lot of people like to ignore, because at the end of the day, we are primal creatures. We are very easy to sway, we're very easy to anger, and obviously these are generalizations, right? But people like to pretend that's not the case. We like to pretend we're so sophisticated and above and better. There's so many things that I grew up with that are just gone and fading away more and more, right? And part of that is just time passing. But another part of it is that people just do progress, quote-unquote, for the sake of progress. To me, progress isn't inherently progress. Like, change isn't inherently progress. But a lot of people think it is, right? People think, change is good. But it's not. Like, change is a neutral, right? It can be bad, it can be good, and I think it's often worse, like, it's often bad. Because there's a reason there are things that work, there are established things that do work. But a lot of the time, these good-intentioned people will push for causes that degrade the culture, they make things worse. Racial tension was basically becoming non-existent when I was growing up, right? And then around, like, you know, Obama coming into office, it started to get stoked again, because it was all about, oh, he's the black president, he's the black one, look, he's black. Making it all about race. And the thing is, with race, I'm not opposed to looking at elements of race, right, and acknowledging that there are differences in culture because of genetics, but I don't view that as the sole factor. I talk to plenty of people in multiple different spheres. You know, there are people who call themselves anti-racist, trademark, and I think they're actually some of the most fucking divisive and race-focused people. But then I also have friends that are like, you know, like white nationalists and stuff like that, and there's points I agree with, there's points I disagree with. For me, race is largely a non-issue. I think sex is far more of a bigger issue. I make no secret that I'm a pretty open misogynist. I think women entering the workplace was a massive mistake, because there are natural things that people are more inclined to, and them entering the workplace created things like HR departments, created harassment cases, all sorts of problems, and just more tension in general. There's so many things that were just, like, normal in the past that people act like is a big deal and make a big fucking stink about. And it's largely because women are fucking everywhere. And it's funny because they'll just relabel things, right? Because, you know, the puritanical feminist will have a problem with porn, but they'll be totally fine with OnlyFans because it's quote-unquote empowering. So there's no consistency in it either, and it's like, it's just calling things by a different name to make it team sports, to be like, this is the good version, trademark. On top of that, everyone's just so fucking zonked out on pills nowadays. Like, they hand out pills like fucking candy. They just prescribe them for any fucking issue. And if they're not prescribing pills, they're telling you to cut your dick off. Like, that's the thing, is like, you go to a therapist and they're gonna either validate delusions, put delusions in your head, or put you on, like, lithium or fucking SSRIs and shit. Like, they're just gonna fuck you up. Like, I largely, like, and there's exceptions, I'm sure. There's probably good therapists still out there. But I largely think therapy is a fucking scam. I largely think, and, you know, I went to some of it when I was growing up, right? Because, you know, I acted out a lot in school, especially in, like, 5th and 6th grade. I was a fucking menace. And the insurance company tried out all these different pills on me to see what would work. And it gave me a horrible allergic reaction to one of them. And eventually in high school, I just stopped taking them. And after I had stopped taking them for like well over a week or two, I told my mom, hey, stop wasting your money on this shit. I haven't been taking it. So that was a whole thing. And it gave me like horrible headaches and shit. Like, everything's just about validation or suppression now, right? Like, you're either validating something or you're suppressing yourself with medication. And I think there's a healthy form of restraint that isn't the same thing, right? Like, I think stoicism has a lot of validity to it, too. But when you're suppressing it with a chemical solution, I think that often causes problems. Now, are all pills inherently bad? No, obviously not. You know, like, type 2 diabetics need pills so their body doesn't reject the insulin they produce, right? That's the distinction between type 2 and type 1, if you don't know. Type 1, you don't produce insulin. Type 2, you do, but your body rejects it. I know because I've had several family members with both immediate and extended family. And, you know, there's, like, heart medication and shit that I'm sure is necessary in people, right? Like, I'm speaking in generalizations here, and in overtones of, like, how much we overdo it as a society, right? There's so much shit. Everything's also just about self-gratification now. And everything's all narcissistic and fucking completely self-indulgent. Like, that's just kind of what we have now, instead of having any sense of community, and, in a way, any sense of individuality, which is ironic given that it's all about self-indulgence, but it basically just makes us all the same, right? It just makes us all just, like, addicted to porn, eating garbage, fucking zonked out on pills, and cutting our dicks off. That's what they want. That's what the goal is with this divide and conquer strategy that we're under now. But I've been all over the place here. I hope this has been entertaining for what it is. Anyway, I think that's probably going to do it. This has been Fugitive Red-Eye. Have a good one. Toodles!
You take forever to say nothing.
Subscribe to Fugitive Red-Eye.